Hi, it's Dwyer. It is July 21st, 2025. GamblersAdvisory.com, a free site. BettingAngle.us, a free site. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, I made a video, and it was on the Manny Pacquiao fight. I understand many great fighters out there, Andre Ward, Paulie Malignaggi, believe that the Manny Pacquiao Mario Barrios fight should not have been a draw. I understand many of them feel that Pacquiao did enough to win the fight. Freddie Roach and Pacquiao are on record as saying that it's an 8-4 fight. Pacquiao thought he won the fight going away. My argument is simply you have to beat the champ to take his title. Right? Let's put it in numbers. Let's even do that. If a fight ends 6-5 and one draw in favor of the underdog, right? I believe the champion leaves with his title. I know logistically the way it works is the judges are scoring each round independently. They're turning in scorecards. You don't get the opportunity at the end of round 12 to say, you know what, I'm going to go back and change my vote in round 7, right? You don't. But how I believe it works is, let's say the challenger, let's say Manny Pacquiao, has banked 6 rounds, 6, going into the 12th, and Mario Barrios has banked 5 rounds going into the 12th. Right? I believe the judges sense that the fight is close. Maybe they don't know the math on their own scorecard, but they sense the fight is close. And I believe old school judges are going to sit there and are going to say, okay, it's close. This challenger has a chance to take the title. They have to show it to me in this last round. Right? If the last round is 50-50, I believe hardcore judges are going to give that round to the champion. They're going to say to themselves, hey man, this is too close for a title to change hands. Right? So many of you disagree. I encourage viewers to look at the comments to that Pacquiao video. Let me just point out a couple of things, right? Mario Barrios lands more shots. Mario Barrios throws more punches. Neither guy gets dropped. In a fight like that, folks, the CompuBox numbers don't look, to me at least, like Manny won the fight. The best you can say is that Manny landed more power punches. But again, Mario Barrios doesn't hit the canvas, isn't holding on for dear life at the end of any of the rounds. Right? So I understand the draw. I'm not complaining about it. I had money on Pacquiao. I wasn't there privately hoping Mario Barrios would win the fight. Right? I had money on Pacquiao. I didn't think he did enough to win the fight in a clear-cut manner. I wouldn't have complained if Pacquiao was awarded the decision, but folks, it was close. My point to you is, look at the judges' scorecards. None of them gave the fight to Manny Pacquiao. So, to the boxing hardcore, let's make this conversation more real. Right? Some of you in the comment section have said, hey, when would you bet on a draw? right? They've laid it out there, right? When would you bet on a draw? Well, there's a fight coming up right now. And understand, you want a betting portfolio, right? I believe that casual gamblers will go in and say, oh, let me pick 8 prop. Why would I do that? Folks, they're laying out props. You're thinking to yourself, what are the most likely scenarios? Right? Let's say you have a scenario where one guy is bigger, stronger, fan favorite, has fought in the venue many times, right? And you're thinking he should win the fight. But how would the other guy win? If you're wrong, what's the second likeliest scenario? If I can bet on both the likeliest scenario and the second likeliest scenario, and if I can net a profit, or if having money on the second likely scenario gives me the opportunity to increase my bet on what I think happens most, right? I don't have a problem with a break even, right? You know, you're wrong, your most likely scenario didn't hit, but the second most likely scenario hit. You're thinking to yourself, I didn't see that coming, but at the same time, the winnings from that offset your losses. Then you're good. So there is a fight coming up where I'm going to put a little on a draw as part of a betting portfolio because I see a big casino mispricing. Right? But I need for folks to think this through. If your likeliest scenario doesn't hit, your second likeliest scenario doesn't hit, lightning strikes, and something you didn't think would happen happened, well, then you deserve to lose the bet. Right? I can sleep at night knowing, man, I was way off on that fight, but it happened and I've got to live with it. Right? In boxing, on some nights, let's face it, a Buster Douglas is going to beat a Mike Tyson. A Kirkland Lang is going to beat a Roberto Duran. Right? It happens every generation. Right? So, let's think about the big fight happening in Vegas. Saul Alvarez, Canelo. Folks, if you ask me to name the king of Vegas in boxing today, right? We understand the real king of Vegas is Elvis Presley, right? But if you ask me to name the king of Vegas in boxing today, it's Canelo. Right? I know this is not the way people think of things. I think for some reason, folks, even when they've seen this happen time and time again, they say, no, that can't be true. Well, I try to believe my eyes. Right? I know. When it's the fourth quarter, whatever has happened the first 3 quarters, when it's the fourth quarter and the game's on the line and it's a Super Bowl, I know not to mess with Pat Mahomes. Right? I don't need to look at math and I don't need to look at numbers and stuff like that. You know a bad man when you see him. Right? I mean, you know, that's my way to look at things. So to me, the big mispricing on Crawford versus Canelo is the idea that Canelo should only be a minus 205. Right? Understand, Canelo has experience at 175. This fight's at 168, where he has been unified more than once. Right, folks? The last few months of seeing Terrence Crawford walking around with extra weight, what's that supposed to do for me? I'm supposed to believe that guys gain weight, that means what? They have greater punch resistance? I don't think so. Right? I mean, how do I know that Crawford can take Canelo's punch? Understand, I privately feel Canelo is one of the hardest punchers pound for pound in the sport. Let's get uncomfortable here. I believe Canelo is a guy who, if he believes in an opponent, if he sees the opponent is, a guy with dreams, and the opponent is a class guy and is trying his best, if he feels the opponent is going about things the right way, right? I believe a Canelo will knock down that opponent. Jaime Munguia, right? We'll overlook the drug test result, right? Jaime Munguia, Edgar Berlanga, right? I believe when Canelo knocked these guys down, Canelo felt, what, this young guy doesn't quite know what he's doing. Canelo remembers when he himself didn't quite know what he's doing. Right? He understands Jaime Munguia is swinging for the fences. He's not going to let Jaime hit him hard. He drops Jaime. He knows he's well ahead on the scorecards. I believe Canelo, at times, coasts to a win. Right? If the fight were at issue, right? If Canelo needed the round, if Canelo needed another knockdown, I believe he could step on the gas and get it. But he's fighting Jaime Munguia, who's not defensively blessed. We saw that in the Siraj fight, right? Not defensively blessed. Canelo knocks him down. Canelo's a guy who fights with a reserve. Right, so, Canelo, simply to win. Minus 205. Folks, the line should be minus 300 or something like that. Understand, Crawford hasn't fought at 160, much less 168. When Canelo enters the ring, Canelo in Vegas is going to have a 2-round advantage. Let me go one step further. Canelo's going to show up. There'll be a Crawford crowd there. They're, going to be in the big arena. Let me tell you what happens in big arenas. Right? A guy who already is a box office king is going to have his crowd there front and center. They're going to be the ones buying the tickets in these hard economic times. I've been to Vegas for Canelo fights. Let me tell you the experience. You're on the plane, right? I'm coming in from Northern California. You're on the plane, and there are people there wearing headbands and stuff like that on the plane. You're not even in Vegas. You're at your airport. You see the Mexican colors. You can spot the Canelo fans because they're wearing stuff with Canelo's picture on it. Right? Then you get to Vegas. You're at McCarran Airport. You're waiting for your luggage. You look around. You see Canelo fans waiting for their luggage. Right? I'm just telling you how it is. Then you're walking around the street. And you see Canelo fans on the sidewalk. You see Canelo fans in cars on the strip. Right, folks? That's what a cash cow means. Right, so first round, they're going to come out. Understand, Canelo's not fighting George Foreman. He's not fighting some slugger. He's not fighting Sonny Liston. Right? Floyd Patterson doesn't make it out of the first round, folks. Right? 2 fights. Doesn't make it out of the first round. The crowd's going to be screaming for Canelo. What's the first round going to be like? Isn't it going to be Crawford on his back foot, moving away from Canelo? Right? So, let's think this through. There's a possibility that Canelo gets a stoppage. Right? I say this as someone who loves Crawford. Right? Canelo could get a stoppage. Understand, if you look at the Mean Machine Crawford fight, you'll see Crawford hit the canvas. Ref missed it. It was a delayed reaction off a punch. Right? Crawford's one of boxing's great body punchers. Has anyone figured this out? Who's going to be crazy enough to throw a lot of body punches at a puncher like Canelo, who's defensively blessed, who knows how to fight small, who has one of the absolute best left hooks in the sport? Right, folks? Understand the risk involved. The minute I start reaching for a guy's body, and the guy, is already defensively together and he's bent over, I'm at risk. If my hand's down here, it's not up here. Right? I don't expect Crawford to suddenly come in Archie Moore style. I don't. So to me, the most likely scenario is Canelo wins, either by stoppage or by decision. Right? I could even see a situation. I believe Canelo, I've watched these two together. I know Canelo said hard stuff about Crawford's level of opposition and stuff like that. Some of the comments are downright ridiculous, given the quality of competition Crawford has fought. Right? Sean Porter, Errol Spence, to name two of them. Right? Not to mention countless others. Victor Postal, who I thought was underrated, Amir Khan, Kell Brook. But what I need for people to figure out here is there is another scenario. Right? I could see, by the way, Canelo knocking down Crawford. Crawford getting up, and then Canelo letting him finish the fight. Haven't we seen that fight before? When a guy jumped up to 168. Isn't that the Jermell Charlo fight? Right? Canelo knocks him down in the middle of the fight. Then Canelo knows he's coasting. He doesn't have that need to finish the guy. This isn't Mike Tyson. Right? No. This is a guy who, is just in it to win it. Right? He respects the sport. He respects his opponents. There isn't really any real bad blood between Canelo and Crawford. I think the way boxing works is there are a lot of guys in the sport who admire other guys from a distance. Right? I'm sure Canelo knows all about Alexander Usyk. Right? Usyk heavyweight, Canelo, 168er. Canelo has no plans on fighting Usyk, but he recognizes that Usyk is a craftsman. I'm sure Canelo recognized that Crawford was a craftsman. Never envisioned having to fight Crawford. But let's talk about the other scenario. I don't believe Crawford can go to Canelo's body. I don't think Crawford has a legitimate shot of knocking down Canelo. Right, folks? When's that happened? I mean, all the punchers Canelo has faced, who's knocked him down? Do you feel Crawford's game plan is to actually open up on Canelo? I don't. So what's the other alternative? The alternative is for Crawford to try to beat Canelo on movement. Right? It's for Crawford to try to beat Canelo on his back foot. Right, folks? That means Crawford's only shot of beating Canelo, a guy who's never been stopped. Right? Floyd Mayweather, fight goes the distance. Dimitri Bivol, fight goes the distance. 3 fights with Golovkin, they all go the distance. Crawford's only shot is to win on the scorecards. Crawford by decision. Right? Now let me just say, if you're in that area, If you say, I think Canelo wins, but, some days I'm wrong. If I'm wrong about this fight, what's the scenario under which Crawford could win? It's by decision. If the fight goes to a decision, right? If Crawford exceeds expectations, and this is a fight that makes it to the scorecards and people are buzzing about who actually has won the fight. Folks, the draw prop, you'll be glad you have it. The draw prop is 16-1. Right? It's not like the draw prop is the same as betting on a fighter. Right? No, you're getting considerably better than a minus 205 here. Now, we've all watched boxing long enough to know that there's always one crazy judge out there. Not always, but a lot of the time. Right? There's the fight you watch where you're thinking, wow, I wonder who won this fight, and then one judge has it 8-4. Right? There's always that crazy judge out there. All it takes is a second judge to call the fight even. If the third judge gives it to the guy you thought was going to win, folks, that's a draw. Right? So my point is simply, if I'm betting meaningful money on either guy, right? I'm going into this fight, I'm thinking, oh, this is Canelo's to lose. Right? And there can be freak occurrences. Right? Torn ligaments, broken legs and stuff like that. I've seen, Sonny Liston, the first Ali fight, supposedly, I don't believe it, but supposedly hurts his shoulder. Gives up the heavyweight title on his stool. Right? We've seen stool fights. Oscar De La Hoya against Manny Pacquiao. Right? Decides not to come back out. Tim Tszyu this last weekend against Sebastian Fundora. Right? There are crazy outcomes. I'm not going to invest in Crawford by stoppage. Right? But if the fight goes the distance, if I think that's Crawford's game, that Crawford's going to try to go the distance. Right? Why wouldn't I want the draw at plus 1600? Let me say, too, Crawford by decision, by the way, is a plus 225. Right? The reason why I'm taking Canelo at minus 205 is because Crawford has had exactly one fight above 147. And that fight went the distance. Right? So, just understand, a draw is just part of your hedge. Right? A draw is where you're thinking to yourself, well, if Crawford does better than expected, and the fight goes to a decision, I'd personally feel a lot better, since I'm already on the Canelo side, knowing that I also get the draw. Right? The Manny Pacquiao fight, I made a mistake. I should have realized that the draw was a possibility. Hindsight's 100%. Right? The surprise of the fight, and it was a surprise, is that Mario Barrios did not go blood and guts here like he did against Abel Ramos. Right? So to me, there are definite times where you should consider a draw. Right? I sense Crawford can't knock out Canelo. So there's the heightened chance that Crawford's game is going to be designed for going the distance. Right? William Skull just went the distance on Canelo. Right? If you feel there's a chance that this fight's going to go the distance, given that a draw is cheap insurance, right? Whether you're on the Crawford side of the play, let's say you think Crawford wins by decision, and you're thinking, well, I also recognize that not many have had success against Canelo in Vegas. Understand, Floyd Mayweather was the bigger name when the two guys fought. Floyd Mayweather was Mr. Vegas back then. Right? Just understand, Canelo has really inherited the Mr. Vegas aura from not just Floyd, but the guy before him, Oscar De La Hoya. Right? Those are the guys who really pioneered the I'm going to fight Mexican Independence Day, I'm going to fight Cinco de Mayo week. Right? So Canelo has that. So let's say I'm on the Crawford side of the ledger. Let's say I myself think, wow, Crawford, closer, long consecutive streak of stopping guys, moves up in weight, and somehow Madrimov goes the distance against him. And that's at 154. Right? You know, I could see a Crawford person saying, Canelo has holes in his game. That's what Bomac believes. We're going to do this, but then also realizing I'm fighting Mr. Vegas in Vegas. Right? You know, this is like fighting Elvis Presley in Vegas. I'm fighting Mr. Vegas in Vegas. If we beat this guy 6, 5, and 1 draw round, if it's close, don't you want the comfort that comes in knowing that if it's a draw, you're getting 16-1 odds on that part of the portfolio? Right? So if you're looking for a fight to consider the draw prop, folks, Crawford Canelo. Canelo's coming off a fight where a guy went the distance against him. Right? Crawford, he's not going to be able to hit Canelo to the body. He's not going to linger in the pocket. His game's going to be an on-the-move game. Right, folks? He's going to fight the same type of fight that he fought against Victor Postal. Right? By the way, he knocks Postal down. Right? But Postal was his size. Postal wasn't Canelo's size. In other words, Crawford's going to be moving around trying to land liver shots. Right? This is going to be a fight on the move. As I've said about Crawford in the past, he's a different guy every fight. He's not going to be blood and guts in the pocket. Canelo's going to have to catch up with him. Canelo is going to have to find him. Right? Crawford has gotten together with Dimitri Bivol. Let's remember the Canelo-Bivol fight. Folks, that went the distance. Right? That fight went the distance. Understand how the scorecards read in that fight. Canelo won the early rounds. Whether or not he actually did, he was awarded the early rounds in that fight. Right? So if I know I'm dealing with two craftsmen, that Terence Crawford is unbeaten, wouldn't throw away an unbeaten legacy on a fight he feels he's sure to lose. This doesn't look like a money grab to me. This looks like Ray Robinson, Joey Maxim. Right? Crawford thinking about retiring. You know, he has an itch he needs to scratch. A guy who looks like he's his height. Right? Let me just say, you have optical illusions in life, right? I'm sure Crawford looks at Canelo and thinks, hey, this guy's really my size. Right? He's not Sebastian Fundora. I'm not dealing with freakish angles. This guy's my size. Right? This guy is more popular than me. I think I can beat this guy. What's his realistic way of trying to do so? Folks, it's on the scorecards. Right? I'm telling you, Canelo is defensively blessed. Right? It's on the scorecards. You don't fight Canelo unless you're some young guy. Unless you're some young guy, Jaime Munguia, Berlanga, some young guy who believes in your own invincibility. You don't fight Canelo thinking, oh, I'm going to knock this guy down. I'm going to have a shootout and I'm going to win you know, with power shots. Right, folks? That hasn't worked. Right? That hasn't worked. What I want people to do, too, is to go back and look at the Canelo-Miguel Cotto fight. Right? Cotto, brutal left hooker. Right? Even Cotto understood. He needed to move around. He couldn't stay in the pocket against Saul Alvarez. Right? In a fight where you sense a guy's going to move around. In a fight where you sense one guy is hoping to win on the scorecards. That's a strategy. In fights like that, you should say to yourself, okay, well, while I think Canelo could get a stoppage, I realize Jermell Charlo went the distance against him. Right? I realize Canelo, when he has a fight in hand, lands the plane with style. He doesn't, go for a stoppage. This isn't the guy with a psychic need to get the stoppage. This isn't Nigel Benn, right? And so, in situations like that, yes, that draw prop is there. Understand, nobody bets a draw and nothing else. The draw is part of your betting portfolio to support whatever your plan A is. For this fight, mine is Canelo, simply to win. Right? But if Crawford comes out and does make him miss, is moving around the ring too much, right? Turns this into Roy Jones against James Toney, right? Toney looked like his feet were in cement, right? Then I want the added comfort of the draw prop, right? If I'm way off and Crawford wins by stoppage, or Crawford wins by wide decision, I can live with that. I'll say, okay, I was wrong on the fight. Those are my thoughts. Let me say, too, there are going to be many props on this fight. It's going to get the full treatment. Right? Crawford by decision plus 225 is interesting if you buy into the theory that he could fight a William Skull type fight and not be viewed as running. Right? If I'm Canelo, I come in the ring prepared with hand gestures. Where, if I start to come after the guy and the guy runs away, he's on the other side of the ring, I wave to him. I let the judges know, hey, I'm here ready to fight. I believe Canelo's more advanced than that. That rematch. And it's one of the better fights I've seen. Of Canelo and Golovkin. Canelo was coming in and throwing haymakers. I call it that because to me this is a David Hay move. He'd come and he'd throw these huge punches to let people know, hey, I'm serious. Just to flush the guy out of the pocket. Right? If he does that and people in the crowd are oohing and eyeing, if he convinces the crowd that he's there, he's game, and the reason a fight isn't taking place is because the other guy is running. Crawford might be forced to realize, hey, I'm not going to win a decision moving around the ring like I am. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Also, let me close by saying, too, if Crawford Canelo is major box office. Folks, it's on Netflix. Right? Jake Paul, an outsider, is showing boxing how it's done. Right? It's on Netflix. If the arena is sold out, if there's significant buzz in the days leading up to the fight, if Vegas, which has been empty most of the summer, is suddenly packed again, and everyone understands this fight is box office. If you're a conspiracy theorist, you would then think, well, wow, wouldn't they want a rematch? Right? A draw might get you one. I'm not saying I believe in conspiracies like that, but let's just say anything's possible. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.